over 5 days. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much if you've been with us right the way through. We're going to miss you when we're not doing one tomorrow. Please just put in a thank you. Great to see people coming in. That's fantastic. Yeah, and do let us know where you are. It's so wonderful that this is sort of worldwide. It makes you feel very warm inside and glowing that we're all wanting to learn the same things. I'd just like to let you know that following this session, you will automatically receive your certificate. And then there is a certificate if you've managed to go all 5 days, and that will come to you on Monday, along with all the recordings from each of the sessions, plus some interactive tools for you to use, some flip books to have a look at, so some links to have a look at the resources. Don't forget to get in touch with your regional consultant if you'd like to see samples, or we also have some digital codes to give out so you can have 30 days free access to level 1. So do get in touch. Charlotte, thank you so much. Thanks for your energy, up to date, your enthusiasm, and I'm going to hand over to you now.
Oh, thank you so much, Amanda. And thank you for being so well organized in the background. Bless her. She sits there, she organizes everything. She's the angel behind the scenes. We've got to love that. Thank you so much. Right. So let's see. We have reached Friday. No, Thursday. I think it's Friday because we started on a Sunday and we've done 5. So confusing. It's Thursday, but it is the last of our 5 days. And as I said yesterday, today is all about the practical side of things. So, in our session today, we're going to be thinking a little bit at first about teaching phonics as a whole class. We're then going to be, oh, thank you so much. That's such a lovely thing to say, Pramila. So distracting. Yes, teaching as a whole class, teaching in groups. And then we're going to be looking at working with the decodable readers. We're going to have a brief review of assessment and tracking because we had to sort of skip over it a bit yesterday. We're going to be looking at our top tips. We're going to end by thinking about how we can keep parents involved. And I think that's an incredible point to touch on this week. And finally, I'm going to leave you with a little bit of a goodbye note, but I won't ruin the surprise. So let's get started. You will remember from earlier in this week on the right hand side of the screen as I'm looking at it, we have part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4. What is this? It's our Snappy Sounds lesson sequence. Yes, that's right, the lesson sequence. Brilliant. Good, 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 good. Yay, Rashmi. I didn't give you enough time. I'm sorry. Right, so our lesson sequence. So here is a question for you. Which parts of these lessons do you think are most often delivered to the whole class? At which point is it going to be the teacher talking to everybody? Warm up, definitely. Yep. Part 2, yeah, the I do, we do. Certainly parts of that are going to be whole class sections. Yes, circle time, as we say. The review is also likely to be done as the whole class. Agreed. So let's double check. So, yeah, parts of the lesson most often delivered to the whole class will include the warm up. So, part 1, getting ready to learn, revision, and our lesson objectives. These are likely to be delivered to a whole group. Also, in part 2, things that we're likely to work with will be the saying the new sound, hearing the new sound, writing the new sound, seeing the new sound and recognizing it, a little bit of the reading practice, a little bit of the spelling practice, and of course the tricky high frequency words. These are all likely to be taught in a whole group situation. Of course, part 2 is likely to be a mixture of whole group, small group, individual pair work activities as well. So in part two, you've got a little bit of chance for everything, but certainly as a whole class, there's going to be elements of that that we're doing together. So we're going to start by looking at one of my favorite little game activities that you can find in, to my left, the Snappy Sounds Teacher's Resource Book. Now, we mentioned yesterday it's got lots and lots of useful things, but it's also got instructions for different types of games that you can play. So we're going to start with one of my favorites from the teacher's book, which is a game called Sound Swap. Okay, yes, they do. So as students like games, teachers like games too. Let's not lie to each other today. Let's be lovely and truthful. Teachers like games just as much as students. Okay, so we have a word on the screen. If we blend that word, so we've got the first sound, k, second sound, third sound, t, and we work that together. So we blend that word together to make the word cat. Now, the aim of the sound swap game is to identify individual phonemes in words. So blending sounds all the way through the words, then manipulating those sounds to make new words. We then want to get the kids to choose the correct grapheme to make those new words. So, for example, in the classroom, what you would be using here is you're in the nice resources packs that you get. There are little individual cards for different graphemes, and you can take all of those grapheme cards, you can pop them up on the whiteboard with blue tack, put them down on the floor, whichever way you want to do it. And the idea is that the children should choose one sound to take out and a new sound to put in. So if we were going to take out one of these sounds, for example, maybe we might take the first of these sounds. So if we take the k off, what sound could we put to make a new word? Any ideas? Sat. Yep. Mat. Yep. Possible. I have gone with hat. So I've taken my k, I've put a h, and instead I've got a new word. Yeah. What about this one then? Could you change a different letter to make a new word? Could we go from hat to anything else? Ooh, Rashimi has come out with the one I chose. So going from hat to hot. And that's one simple letter. So we can make those little changes. Now, obviously, depending on the level that you're teaching at, this game might be nice and simple. At the beginning of a phonics program, you'll be working with a limited selection of different graphemes. As you get more and more further into the process, there are more options than the kids can start with, for example. So this game is great, even from week one, but right the way up until the end of the program. There are lots and lots of different combinations that you can do. And obviously, with the whole class, you can play up on the whiteboard, but this game also works for small groups and pair work as well. So you can get the kids to make their own words to try new things out. Should the words be meaningful? I would say if you are working in a second language classroom or a third, fourth, if English is not the primary language of the students in your classroom, when you're playing this game, yes, make the words meaningful, make them true, because that enables you to take that aspect of meaning as well. And it's a teaching and learning opportunity. Right. Another one of the games that I'm sure you have all played before in your classrooms, but maybe not as a phonics game, is Bingo. Yeah, absolutely. So as Manas says, if we're using non-real words or words that don't have meaning, then they are going to get confused, and we don't want to make English more difficult than it needs to be. So another great game that we can use, especially works well in the warm-up section to review previous sounds that we've used, or also, in revision, but also in discerning between different sounds, reviewing the sounds in any way, is bingo. So this one's a sound bingo, and there are lots and lots and lots of ways that we can make this work. The first one, of course, is the teacher saying the sounds. Now you'll notice here that we have got a mixture of S blends. So we've got sm, st, sp. We've got sl as well. We've got the pure s. We've got t. We've got a tr, a tr blend. We've got a z, which is s, z, difficult to differentiate between. And we've also got our p sound. So level one, as a teacher, you may just be calling out the sounds if we're doing simple recognition. So, as teacher, I might be here reading through my list of sounds. The kids are marking them off. I say s. If they have a s, then they tick the s box, etc., etc., etc. To increase that challenge, of course, we would go with a word. Now, challenge level one, putting these sounds at the beginning of the word. So we might say a word like pot, or small, or straw, or stop. Stop is a good one. Stop, top, pot, etc. Working through those words, and when they hear the sound at the beginning of the word, we tick the one we hear. Exactly. Challenge level 0, just the sounds. Challenge level 1, words with the sound at the beginning. Challenge level 2, words with the sound inside them. So, not just at the beginning of the word. So I might say first, and they'd have to tick the st box. Might say gasp, grasp, lovely word there. Identifying sounds at the end. Or it might be in the middle, aspire, for example. So you can increase that challenge level by moving where in the word that sound appears. Now Fatima has suggested sphere, and this is where we need to be careful. We don't say sp here, do we? So it's not a SP blend. That PH is a f grapheme. So we do need to be careful. And I find I find this really challenging myself. Don't worry, even as a native speaker teacher, we still make mistakes in that as well. So yeah, do be careful, do check your list. But remember, you have got a handy resource. Where can I find a list of words to match my graphemes? Anyone remember? Let's see in the chat box. Where could I possibly find a list of words? The teacher's guide and the cards. Yes, the teacher cards and the teacher guide has those words on the back. So you don't even need to prepare your own words. You can just have a look in the teacher's guide, have a look at the back of the flashcard. You've got a list of words that you can use to play these games. Okay, now another one that we are going to play together is a little game called Thumbs Up, Thumbs Down. All right. However, instead of doing thumbs up, thumbs down, and of course, in the classroom, you could do this as stand up, sit down. If you're teaching still in a blended context where you're partly online or completely online, thumbs up, thumbs down on camera, or you can use emoji icons in a chat box as well if you need. Oh, sorry, Freddie, at least you're back now. So in this one, we're actually going to use the chat box, and instead of saying thumbs up, thumbs down, I want you to give me a Y or an N. So a yes or a no. Thumbs up, yes. Thumbs down, no. And what I want you to do is listen to some words. Now, I'm going to give you a list of words. If you hear that the word has s in it, s sound, then you're going to give me a Y in the chat box. If the word does not contain s, you're going to give me a no, an N in the chat box. Are you ready? I'm sure you are. Word number 1 is sun. Sun. Hey, there we go. Nice and simple for you guys because you're teachers. Much more challenging for the children. Word number 2, fun. Fun. Excellent. Good. All right. Word number 3, sound. Sound. Excellent. And word number 4 is sting. Sting. Okay. So we see how that works. And again, you can use your word lists from the flashcards. You can use um, vocabulary from other parts of your English lessons. If you are not teaching phonics exclusively, you can use this to practice phonics and review key vocabulary from other classes. You can also say hands up, hands down, indeed. Lots of different ways that you can do it. If you've got a nice open classroom, you can always play it in corners as well. So really get some of that energy out. Get the kids to run to the left corner if it is yes, and run to the right corner if it is no, and burn off some of that energy while we're playing. Always useful. All right. So, as I said, those 3 ideas are all ideas that are in here. Oop, in here. Sorry, the sunshine's coming down. Yeah, you could use agree or disagree cards. Absolutely. Now, it's always useful to remember that in here we have got lots and lots of guidance for different activities that we can do. So don't feel that you need to come up with new games and activities. Down here, we've got the list of excellent games that you can play, and all 3 of those, the instructions, are in here. Of course, if you do want to come up with your own games, and we were talking yesterday about using different flashcard games that we know, fly swat games, puzzle games, they all work. But just to remind you that you don't need to do that work on your own, there is ideas and support in the lesson plans. Now, once we get to part 3, our practice and application, the you do section, here we're looking much more at group work, pair work, and individual work. So, what can we do when we're working in groups? Well, first tool that we've got to hand is, of course, our decodable readers. We're going to be looking at one of my favorites today, which is thunderstorms. um, Working with your decodable readers in guided reading sessions. So having the children reading together with some guidance, you're the teacher monitoring, working with different groups, doing different tasks at different times so you can stagger that support and that input. We can also have them working with the activity sheets. We looked at some of those yesterday. We're going to look at another one of those in a bit more detail today. Oh, excuse me. Too much talking this week. Hello? Yes, good. Okay, give me a yes if you can hear me. Excellent. End of the week, and I've forgotten how all the technology works. Such a problem. So, when we're working with guided reading, when we're working with group work, if you can, try to keep the kids in similar abilities reading groups. We all know the challenges that mixed abilities can bring in a classroom, but the closer that the children are in terms of their ability and their level, the better they are able to support each other. Otherwise, we can get into those challenges. If you do have the type of students that like to help each other, and if you have a good supportive classroom environment, then don't be afraid to mix those groups up and let the stronger students support the weaker students. But remember, there's always the danger that the weaker students will do less, feel worse, if they are paired with someone that is too far above them. But of course, you know your students better than I do, so make your judgments as it were. We also talked about the flashcard activities and of course different games that you can play. So we mentioned that sound swap game works equally well in a small group situation. Children can make their own bingo cards in the group. All of the games that you can play as a whole class can be adapted or changed to be smaller group games as well. Now, we did say we'd talk a little bit more about these. So, as you can see on the screen here, we've got some examples. Now, the first example is a Find the Sound worksheet, and this is one of the dedicated grapheme worksheets. So, this grapheme is for sun, and we are practicing our initial sounds. And here, all we have to do is we see, we say, we point, we color, and we identify which words have this sound. So we can do this as a coloring challenge for individual work. Color the pictures that contain this at the beginning. We can have them circling. We can have them writing out those words. There's lots of things that we can do. The 3 in a row worksheet is really flexible. As you'll notice, this one has the first 3 graphemes that we meet, S-A-T, SAT, sat, to make us words. And there's lots and lots of things that we can do. So the basic example here that we're trying to get 3 in a row. So they color in the circle when they choose the sound, and for each sound, for each letter, they have to choose a word to represent it. So they might say sock. If that's correct, we color that in my color. Next person takes a turn. If they get it right, they will color that in for themselves. You can also use counters. Other challenges that we can do are making a route through it. So, can we get from the top left to the bottom right, thinking of a new word every time and practicing our sounds? And there are lots of different ideas, again, in the teacher's book that you can look at for reference. Okay, how are we doing? Any questions so far before we move on to the guiding and the reading and the decoding? We're good, we're good. Okay. Well, don't worry, we will be leaving time today for questions. I know we ended up skipping over it yesterday. Yeah, timing. Right. Let's talk a little bit then about the graded readers, decodable readers. I've got graded readers on the mind because what I'm going to say to you now is if you use readers in a classroom, all of those things that you know about will be beneficial and helpful. Everything we can do. So, speaking first, always, and we will come back to that a bit at the end as well. But remember, we need to model the sounds and hear the sounds before we before we read and see the sounds. Read and see the graphemes. Can you see sound? Oh, Thursday questions. Right. So, before reading, much like any other reading book that you might use in the classroom, you are going to be using activities that warm the children up, get the learners practicing their new words that are used in the book, check their understanding of those new words, and start thinking about all of the different things they need to know. The before reading activities are about getting ready to read. During reading, we're looking at different tips to help struggling readers and different activities that we can do. And after reading activities, to consolidate fluency, to bring in that comprehension, and to check the vocabulary for the new words and the meanings. Absolutely. So, as Jill mentioned yesterday, all of the books, and you can see this on the screen on the slide there, all of the books, whatever the level, whether they are fiction or non fiction, have before, during, and after reading activities that you can do. But let's have a little bit more of a look in detail. Oh, and yes, of course, just a reminder to myself on the screen there, don't forget in the teacher's materials, you've got support for using those decodable readers. So, if you are in your classroom and you are about to read a new book with your kids, what are you going to do? What's the first thing you would do as a teacher? Ask what it's all about. Absolutely. And how would the kids get this information? Exactly. Prediction, starting with the front cover. Absolutely. So we might look at this book and we might read the title together. It's decodable. There's nothing in here that they don't know. They've got at. That's decodable. The is one of our tricky high frequency words. So we'll have taught that on the poster before. They should be familiar. And beach is our new decodable word. So we might ask them, what can you see? Where do you think this is? What country do you think you are in? Is there a beach near here? All of those questions that you would normally ask in a classroom are just as important in working with decodable readers as well. So, exactly, we're asking them, Nadia has said this, that we're asking them to share their experiences, to personalize the topic. We're getting them interested, building the motivation to read. As we said right back at the beginning of this week, reading is not a natural process. We have to learn it. So we need to motivate them. And absolutely, we can use the WH questions. So before reading, we're going to be doing some work with the cover, getting different ideas going. The other thing we're going to do before reading, of course, is work with our vocabulary. Oh, brilliant. I love that idea, Daniela, letting them tell you a story from their imagination about the picture. Wonderful. Yeah. And as you say, Samaya, we need to work about those objectives as well. So, what do we think it's going to be about? What do we think we're going to learn in this book? Um, in the front cover, we mentioned this yesterday. On the second page, you've got your fast phonics pages right there. So we went through this with Jill, but I'm going to go through it again because it is important. Tricky high frequency words. These are the words from the posters. These are the words that occur. And at the top on the left hand side, you can see which ones are going to occur. What do we do with these before we start reading? We check they remember how to say them. We practice our sounds. We went through this with Jill. So, yesterday, when we were talking, we go through all of the sounds we're going to find in the book. And then, of course, we've got the snappy words. Now, all of the snappy words are decodable, but they are words that feature in the story. So, in At the Beach, we've got words like great, grazing, sea, tiny, fine, shiny stone. Why are some of the words underlined, says Pramila. Can anybody guess why grazing, kite, safe, and seaweed might be underlined? And I tell you, it's not about the spelling. Yeah, they are unseen, low frequency words. Okay. Now, bearing in mind, these are words that native children, native English speaking children, will find strange or unusual to them. If you're working with phonics in an international context, you're going to need to spend some time on this page just to make sure, like we would with any book, that we're making sure they understand the meaning of the vocabulary. Now, what I would say in an international context is that actually, when it comes to reading a decodable reader, we're all about the reading of the words. So, if you're working with monolingual students, if you're working in a classroom with only one other language than English, I would say no problem. Give them the quickest transformation. We can just tell them, oh, grazing, it's not an important word for you, but it means the eating that sheep and cows do. It means animals eating grass. This is enough for them to understand. Are they going to need this word next week? No. So don't, thank you, don't spend too long teaching the different vocabulary. Just yeah, if it's a low frequency word, give them the translation, move on. They can understand the concept, it's enough to remember for the purpose of the story. Okay, they don't need to remember it next year. What they do need to do is be able to read it. So the key is to focus on the decoding, but to briefly teach the meaning. So, talking too fast, trying to say too much. Now, when we are in the book, when we're working with the decodable readers during reading, there's all sorts of different things that we can do. We might get students to take turns with the reading if we're all reading the book at the same time in a small group, or even as a class. Get students to take turn reading pages. I generally avoid this in my classroom just because I find that, if you've got one student reading, the other student can get a bit distracted. But in some classrooms, it works. And I've had classes who love to read out loud. And in that case, I would do it. So, again, it's contextual. Your students for your students better than anyone else does. Yeah. Reading pages together, so in small groups, getting them to read to each other. We live in a wonderful world of technology now. There are lots and lots of different ways that you can get the students to record themselves reading. And one thing that is worth knowing is that these books, also in the digital version, have a read along audio track as well. So if we're recording the students, they can compare themselves to a recording to make sure that they've got those words right. Little activities like sounding out and blending, so spot check words. And of course, as a teacher, regularly checking the comprehension. Remember? Oh, yes. And yeah, I wasn't going to tell them that, Amanda, but yes, it's my voice on the recordings as well. So if you want to listen to me reading you stories, they have audio tracks. I read all 80 of them. The ones at the beginning were difficult. The ones at the end was a bit better, but you have to be really, really careful in the beginning. Anyway, yes. So regularly checking that comprehension. Thank you, Sahira. Comprehension. Remember what we said at the beginning, the simple view of reading. The simple view of reading doesn't just mean decoding. Being able to read means understanding as well. So we do need to go through. And just like with anything, we can have a look and we can point and things. So we might say to the kids, "Ooh, look at this arch. How do you think it was made?" And they can give us their ideas and we can say, "Can we find out?" And we can read that sentence. And then we can ask them, "What is a wave?" So, how does the wave cut the rock? Remember to build that comprehension too. Okay. And on the subject of comprehension, don't forget at the end of the books, there are lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of support for comprehension questions as well. So here, what did we learn about the beach? Um, what does the word grazing mean? Do we remember Q&A type sessions? Why do we need to keep the coast clean? That one brings in the personalization as well. So we're not only practicing the comprehension, but we've got a little bit of that critical thinking skill coming in as well. A little bit of the, what have I understood from the book? How does it connect to my life as well? So let's have a look at a book together, shall we? Picked up the book Thunderstorms. Here it is. So as your teacher, I might ask you, what do we know? What is this? Does anybody know what this is called? And they all shout out, "Teacher, teacher, teacher, I know, I know, I know." Anyone in the chat box? It's lightning. And I'd be like, "Yeah, brilliant. Well done, class." And I say, "Okay, let's try and sound this out together." Now, this one is a long word. So we could practice it. So we've got TH, a, n, d, storms. And we can build it out and we can break it down. And that's a really good point. Someone has said under there. So we can break that word down and we can say, okay, what about this bit? What does that say? Break that word down, build that letter up until we've got the whole word blended together. It's like, I might ask you, when was the last time there was a thunderstorm near your house? Can anybody tell me? Who had the last thunderstorm? Anyone seen any thunder today? Let's have a look. Any stormy days out there recently? Okay, no. No, 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 no. My mum said she heard some this morning, but she lives maybe an hour from me, so didn't hear any in my house. Last Sunday, says Adushe. Brilliant. Okay. So we can personalize it, bring that in. Now, we'd then go in and we would ask and we would check. So we say, okay, let's practice our tricky high frequency words. Quite a lot in this. We'll practice our individual sounds. So here we are practicing and uh. So we've got the purer sound and we've got the schwa as well. So practice our sounds. And again, we'd pre-teach our vocabulary. So we can see here, this one makes it very clear. Winter, farmer, these are fairly common words, but students are unlikely to know what ferns or herbs are potentially. So, yeah, again, all of those underlined words show you that they are lower frequency and you're likely to have to spend more time on it. And then, of course, we can start reading together. And I'm not going to read this whole book to you because I do want to leave some time for questions. But it is a good one. I like it a lot. You meet a farmer, you see some cows that are hiding from a thunderstorm. It's all very engaging and natural. Um, I like this book a lot. And we move through, we get to the end, and then in the comprehension questions at the end, we can practice our snappy words, but we've also got our comprehension. So comprehension questions from this story. What did the author tell us about thunderstorms? What did we learn? When can they happen? What is a thunderstorm? And have you ever seen a thunderstorm? How did it make you feel and why? Give me a yes if you love thunderstorms. Anyone out there? Let me see. I am a big yes on thunderstorms. I love them. They're amazing. Because of my childhood, my mum used to take me outside because when I was a kid, I was scared. So she'd take me outside to watch. And now I just love them. Absolutely love them. So, all of, yes, I do, but my cats don't. Same here. So, all of those hints and techniques that we can use to go through any reading book, any reading passage that we would normally do in our classroom, we can apply those to decodable readers as well. Thing I always say with phonics, it's doing the thing that you do, but doing it with a phonics book instead of anything else. You know how to teach a book. Right. Okay, now we skipped over the assessment bit yesterday. I would like to come back to this a little bit again. So remember, our assessment, it's not mandatory in every institution. In some institutions, you may choose never to do any assessment at all. In other institutions, you may be told to. If you teach in the UK, you would definitely be told to. Lots of assessment for very small children. Bet you can't guess my opinion. Right. Oh, sorry. Ah, so the objective of the assessment, remember, is to check that we are decoding. We are looking for fluency of recognition of phoneme, grapheme correspondence. Can they match the writing to the sound fluently? We're looking for them to be able to decode those words. We're getting them to sound out and blend non words, maybe. Although, again, subtext, don't use non words in a non first language classroom. They are controversial enough in the first language classroom. Believe me, a lot of teachers over here really don't like them. And of course, then we're checking that they can read an unseen text or PGC. Someone help Gulaim. What do we say PGC responds to? For those of you that have been here all week, can we remember PGC is phoneme, grapheme, correspondence, connection between the sound and the writing. How we make that connection. Brilliant, lovely. Okay, all right. So, tips for assessment and tracking. Whatever, when you are assessing, if you are assessing, working with one student at a time, one to one. Now, yes, it takes time. Yes, it's helpful if you have a teaching assistant. You don't necessarily have to test all of the students on one day, but one to one, one to one. And you work through the sections of the assessment one by one. The general recommendation is to set a maximum of 3 attempts for reading new words. You can make that higher, you can make that lower, but what you must do is make it consistent. Don't give your favorite student 5 chances and your worst student only 1 chance. Be equal to everybody. I would never do that, obviously. Offer encouragement and support, but try not to help too much. So you don't want to be giving hints and tips. You don't want to be saying those sounds out loud. You can remind them that it needs to be sounded out and blended, but don't give them the answers. 1 mark for every correct word, 1 mark for every correct sentence. If you have any things that you are thinking of, such as challenging graphemes that you want to keep a note of, that you might want to come back and put into more time in the classroom, we can do that. Note down those comments on your tracking guide, add up the total marks. There's your tracking, there's your score. And we've got those tracking grids. And as I said yesterday, they last for the whole of the year, so you can monitor that progress. Right. So 5 top classroom tips. Can anyone guess what my missing numbers are on the top sentence? How many phonics lessons do we think we need per week? 5. 5 is the top end. Yeah. 3 at least. Okay. All right. Well, hopefully you have managed to guess my second point. As a teacher, our responsibility is to make phonics something and something. Any ideas what those missing words might be? Let's have a guess. I'm not gonna. Simple and fun. Oh, those are nice words. Decodable, very on brand. Very good. Fun. Oh, lots of people are going with fun. All right. Phonics should involve the whole class. Good guess. Yeah, lots of people going class. Lesson, maybe. All right. Something first, something second. And we've already said this a couple of times today. Warm up first. Yes, that's for sure. Sound first. So if the sound is first, what comes second? Phoneme first, grapheme second. Yeah. All right. And of course, phonics lessons uh, should contain frequent what might be phonic first, grapheme second. Yeah, repetition, that's a nice word. Practice is a good word. Any of these could go in my gaps. Shall we have a look at what I actually said? Right. So, yeah, 3 to 5 phonics lessons in a week. That's what you're aiming for. We need to go at pace. Um, if you think about it, one phonics lesson will give you one phoneme grapheme correspondence. As I said at the beginning of the week, there are over 120 phoneme grapheme correspondences. Um, that would take a really long time if we're not doing as many sounds as we can per week. But remember, the benefit of doing lots of sounds is that once we've got lots of sounds, we can blend them together and make words. So, yeah, the benefit of doing 5 a week is high. If you can fit it into your schedule, I would totally recommend 5 lessons a week. But 3 is sort of the minimum to be successful. Make phonics fun and active. Now, a lot of you said fun. We all know with the young learners, it needs to be fun. They've got low focus levels. We need to get them going. We need them to enjoy their learning. And the best way we can do that is to make it fun and active. It should involve the whole class and it should be spoken first, written second, phoneme first, grapheme second. And we do want frequent practice and revision. Now, one group of people that can help us with that are, of course, the parents. I don't want you to answer this question. I just want you to think about it. In your school, what systems do you have in place for working with your parents? Maybe you have a newsletter that goes home each week. Maybe you have regular meetings with parents. Um, Maybe you have a parent committee. Maybe your parents do nothing and don't get involved. So think about the systems that you already have in place with the parents for how you can get them involved in phonics learning. Um, so, best things to do to keep parents involved about phonics and phonics instructions. Firstly, let them know what phonics is and let them know why phonics is. Because, I mean, there are languages in the world. The first one that comes to mind for me is Turkish. Each letter has one sound. If you know the sound the letter makes, you know everything. English is not like that. We do not have an easily transcribed language. So when you're learning English and when you're working in English, it's very, very important to have that phonics support. Sending tip sheets home about how to get that support at home. So, yeah, weekly topics covered, sent home. At the same time, we send home um, information. You can share the videos about using the decodable books if you've got parents that also speak English. You can send them home explanations in their L1 if you don't. How to use the decodable books, because the parents can do the same thing. The child is the one that has to do the reading. So, just as I, as a teacher, can sit here and ask questions, the parents can do the same at home. How to use the activity sheets. Ah, brilliant. Using Teams. We've all adjusted so much over the last 2 years. And of course, explaining to them the idea of tricky words and how tricky words, there are some words that are really frequent that we can't necessarily decode straight away. So, spending time talking to them about what makes a tricky word and giving that. But I think the top tip for getting parents involved is encouraging the children to be the teacher, getting them to teach their parents the games that they play in class so they can play together at home. It's a great opportunity for that recycling to happen, but also for giving the children that ownership of their learning as well. So one thing you might want to do is get them to maybe get them to video themselves playing the sound swap game with their parents. See if they can win and send those videos in. And this is a great sort of homework activity that can really bring that together. But going to leave you with a final thought before we move on to some question time. And I'm going to leave you with what I think is a really, really, really good reason to study phonics. And it's a little poem. And some of you may have seen this before. But I'm going to read it to you. And as I read it, I'd like you to follow along. And we will see exactly why phonics helps readers in English. It's a poem called Our Strange Lingo. And I can't for the life of me remember who wrote it. But it goes, when the English tongue we speak, why is break not rhymed with freak? Will you tell me why it's true? We say so, but likewise few. And the maker of this verse cannot rhyme his horse with worse. Beard is not the same as herd. Chord is different from word. Cow is cow, but low is low. Shoe is never rhymed with foe. Think of hose, dose, and lose. And think of goose, and yet with choose. Think of comb, tomb, and bomb, dole and roll, or home and some. Since pay is rhymed with say, why not paid with said, I pray? Think of blood, food, and good. Mould is not pronounced like could. Wherefore done, but gone and loan? Is there any reason known? To sum up all, it seems to me sounds and letters don't agree. I love this little poem, but it's yes, I know. It's a great piece of writing. So yeah, if you're ever in any doubt of why systematic synthetic phonics is going to help you to help your children to start reading in English, there is your explanation. Okay, all right. So we've got a few minutes left. If you have any questions, and I can see Suzanne has come in with what's your take on a spelling bee? I love a spelling bee. I love spelling bees because I'm really good at spelling. So, just as a child, I loved them. As a teacher, I use them. As a teacher trainer, I use them as well. I love a spelling bee. I think they're great fun. I understand that they're a bit time consuming and a bit of a challenge, but yeah. Do like a spelling bee. If you want to use a spelling bee in my classroom, you've got no problem from me. Any other questions? Let's see. Ooh. I always wonder why comb has O and tomb has oo. Yeah, sorry. There's no explanation for it. Well, there is historically. Weirdly, like writing in English didn't all start in the same place. So across the United Kingdom, people regionally started writing words however they wanted to. There was no um, central decision for how words should be spelt up until the first dictionary, and that started to nationalize spelling. But weirdly, some words have kept some spelling patterns, other words have kept other spelling patterns, and it's all just crazy. So there's a little bit of English language history for you. Any other questions? Da-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. Yeah, no questions, lots and lots of comments. Maybe Ms. Amanda will like to join us and come and say thank you to all of our participants.
I definitely would. I definitely would. Charlotte, I just wanted to pick up on one thing that you'd said, which I thought was really interesting about if you're using synthetic phonics to talk to your parents and let parents know that you've taken
Yeah.
this approach. And I was thinking particularly with those very early decodable readers, because they're there to give the children confidence that they can read. Those very early ones aren't great stories.
No.
And it's only as you go through, isn't it, that you build up that vocabulary that means you can read with confidence a proper sort of story or a non-fiction title. So I thought that was a really insightful comment to make to everyone. Thank you, as Charlotte said. Well, first of all, a huge thank you to Charlotte. All those
And
comments,
also Jill.
I think, oh, and to Jill, who's not with us today, but thank you both. You know, your energy, enthusiasm, but more importantly, your knowledge, your hints and your tips, that they've been incredible, and I've really enjoyed them. And I can see from all the wonderful comments that other people have too. Thank you all so much for joining us.
Yes, seconded from me. It's you cannot do this job effectively if you don't have an audience in the chat box who are sharing their ideas and giving you the feedback. So if Jill and I were good this week, it's thanks to the teachers that have attended, for sure.
Yeah, your energy, I think, has driven this as well. So thank you for all the teachers who are involved, the energy from all the teachers out there. Thank you so much. We will be following up, of course, with the links from today, in fact, with the links from every day, with a certificate for today, a certificate if you've attended all 5 days. If you've attended all 5 days, there's a little free prize competition that we will be putting your names into to actually win some resources. Do get in touch with your local teams if you would like to get some samples, access to a free trial for 30 days. Please do get in touch with them. Always email international.curriculum@macmillaneducation.com and we can help you out there. That is a great question. What's the longest word in English? Do you know, Charlotte?
I'm not sure, but it'll be one of those compound words like the anti-disestablishmentarianism type words. But it's not. Do you know what? I'm sitting here on my computer. Do you know what I have in front of me? Google. Longest word in English. I don't know.
I think it might be
Oh my goodness.
anti-disestablishmentarianism, not that?
No, it's not.
Can you say it?
I'm going to try. Okay, so the longest word in English is apparently, I'm going to put it in the chat box and then we can all try and say it. There we go. It'll give us our phonics practice. The longest word in English is apparently pneumo. We've got that bit. Pneumono ultra microscopic silicovolcanoconiosis, apparently.
Okay, that sounds like a dreadful disease. Which it probably is. Thank you all very much indeed. Any questions, email us, and anything that you feel has not been covered you'd like to hear a little bit more of, pop that in an email to International Curriculum and we'll see what we can do with any future sessions. Thank you all. You've been absolutely fantastic. Thank you, Charlotte and Jill, and I wish everybody
Amanda,
a very
thank
good
you,
evening.
Amanda. Big round of applause to you
day.
as well for managing everything this week.
Yeah,
You've done
my
a
pleasure.
great job.
Thanks, everybody.
Nothing has gone wrong.
No. Thanks,
Right.
everybody. Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.